On the broadcast tonight, Ben Bernanke gives the U.S. economy a nod of approval just a month before he leaves the Fed, moving the central bank to begin winding down a bond buying program meant to boost growth with the recovery on firmer footing. The nation's defense ministry announces the interim result of a 2-month probe into whether the military cyber command unit meddled in last year's presidential election. The result? Well, cyber warfare officials did violate their obligation of political neutrality but did not intervene in the election. And it's been 1 year since the Korean people voted to put Park Geun-hye into the nation's top office. Which areas did she excel in and where do we need improvement? We have an analysis. This is Early Edition at 6. It is 4 a.m. in Washington, noon in Juba, and 6 on a Thursday evening here in Seoul. Welcome to Early Edition at 6. I'm Moon Gon-young.
And I'm Daniel Che. Thank you for joining us. Power is nothing without control, and apparently in Korea, we're doing a pretty decent job.
Right, the temperatures are dropping rapidly here in the nation, and the weather is only expected to get colder as we enter the Christmas weekend. Now, during this time of the year, energy is always a concern for this resource-scarce country.
But rest assured, Koreans are expected to enjoy a stable power supply this winter. No chance of a massive blackout like the one seen back in 2011. Arirang starts us off.
Warmer winter weather and a more stable energy supply are going to help Korea keep the lights on this season. Back in 2011, the government had been forced to use a controlled blackout to regulate power consumption. But the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy on Thursday said the country's power reserves will hover around a safe level of 5 million kilowatts this winter, even when energy usage reaches its peak in the last week of January. That's provided that 3 of the country's 23 nuclear reactors are back up and running again soon, after being shut down back in May for using cables with fake certificates. Officials say the 3 will most likely begin operations again in the second half of next month. But the government did warn that unseasonably cold weather and malfunctioning nuclear reactors could bring about a power shortage. To keep energy usage at a safe level, it said it will offer a special rate cut of 30% on electricity consumed during the least busy hours, while the rate during peak hours may increase to 4 times the normal rate. Companies and shopping districts have also been ordered to keep their thermostats below 18 degrees. Yurian, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, over in the U.S., the Federal Reserve has decided to dial back its $85 billion bond buying stimulus by trimming $10 billion starting next month. Ben Bernanke cited stronger economic conditions in the U.S. but vowed to keep that country's interest rates at near zero levels. Our Park Ji-won reports.
The Federal Reserve announced Wednesday that it will reduce its long-running bond purchasing program to $75 billion a month from previous $85 billion beginning next month. Fed Chairman Ben Bernanke said the central bank's decision came as the U.S. economy shows strong signs of recovery.
Despite significant fiscal headwinds, the economy has been expanding at a moderate pace, and we expect that growth will pick up somewhat in coming quarters, helped by highly accommodative monetary policy and waning fiscal drag. The job market has continued to improve, with the unemployment rate having declined further.
He added the Fed will further taper the stimulus bond buying program next year if the economy continues to pick up. To minimize any possible blow on financial markets, the Fed kept its record low key interest rate near zero. This suggests the rate will stay near the bottom line longer than previously expected.
The committee also clarified its guidance on interest rates, emphasizing that the current near-zero range for the federal funds rate target likely will remain appropriate well past the time that the unemployment rate declines below 6.5%, especially if projected inflation continues to run below the committee's 2% longer-run goal.
The announcement comes a little over a month before Bernanke steps down from his post as Fed chairman. Bernanke said he closely consulted with the Fed's vice chair Janet Yellen, who's expected to be the next Fed chair, and she fully supported the decision. With the Fed's decisions on the stimulus and interest rates, both the Dow Jones Industrial Average and the S&P 500 finished at record highs Wednesday. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
And for a detailed analysis of the effects the Federal Reserve's tapering of its stimulus program might have on Korea and the rest of the region, Arirang's economics correspondent Hwang Ji-hye spoke with David Vines, professor of economics at the University of Oxford. He says the tapering could result in unfortunate battles on the foreign exchange market.
The long-awaited taper has begun. And as David Vines, a professor at Oxford University, says, this is likely to reverse the trend of money flowing into emerging markets, particularly in Asia. He adds that the pace of tapering is under control.
It's going to go down very, very slowly, and it will be managed. So at its best, it will lead to a gradual outflow of funds and a small fall in currencies, and that's what you have to hope for.
Professor Vines says the real risk is cross-currency transactions that aren't well hedged, but that a simple fall in the currency can be a good thing.
This will help promote exports from East Asian economies, and that will be constructive for those economies.
Tighter liquidity in the U.S. will mean a stronger U.S. dollar and a weaker Japanese yen. So could that prompt a currency war in the coming months, given that Korea, China, and Japan compete in export markets?
It could. The hope is that they will all fall against the dollar somewhat, and that there's not too much imbalance in that fall. If there's a very rapid outflow from one particular one of the countries and that falls down, then that does create turbulence. And I wouldn't call it warfare, I would call it unfortunate battles.
Although the Fed's tapering of its bond-buying stimulus measures indicates a recovery in the U.S. economy, Professor Vines says the U.S. economy is still not at its full strength because investment figures haven't picked up. He went on to say that Asian economies, including Korea, should work on promoting more domestic expenditures that lead to longer-term development. Hwang Ji-hye, Arirang News.
Well, Korea's finance ministry, Hyun Oh-seok, says the Fed's tapering of its monetary stimulus program will have a limited effect on the nation's economy given its stable fundamentals. Speaking at a meeting of economy-related ministers Thursday, Hyun also said the markets have already adjusted to the prospect of the stimulus rollback, removing most of the remaining uncertainty surrounding that decision. Well, he did warn, however, that international capital outflows could increase the level of market volatility in the short run and vowed to respond with a contingency plan to counter any kind of market stability.
Surprisingly, North Korea seems to be focusing on economic matters after executing leader Kim Jong-un's uncle and the country's second most powerful man, Chang Song-taek. A fourth round of inter-Korean discussions, which took place at the Inter-Korean Joint Industrial Complex in Kaesong, has just come to an end. Our Hwang Sung-hee reports.
The two Koreas met on Thursday for the first time since the North executed its second-in-command and key economic policymaker Chang Song-taek last week. It's the fourth round of inter-Korean discussions on the management of their jointly run Kaesong Industrial Complex. On the agenda was easing the commute and custom procedures for South Korean workers crossing the border to the north, as well as allowing the use of the internet and mobile phones within the complex. On the same day, North Korea welcomed a delegation of foreign officials from the Group of 20 nations to the joint business park. The South Korean government expects the tour to be the first step in globalizing the complex, which is regarded as the last remaining symbol of economic cooperation between the two Koreas. Experts say Thursday's inter-Korean talks and visit by the G20 delegation will offer a glimpse at North Korea's economic policy and where the joint factory zone stands after Chang's execution. As the country's key economic policymaker, Chang had been in charge of a handful of economic cooperation projects. Meanwhile, former NBA star Dennis Rodman left for Pyongyang for the third time this year. Experts say if Rodman meets with his North Korean friend Kim Jong-un again, it will signal the regime remains stable, at least for now. Hwang Sang-hee, Arirang News.
Korea and China have struck a deal on returning the remains of Chinese soldiers killed during the Korean War more than 60 years ago. Korea's defense ministry made the announcement Thursday, 6 months after President Park Geun-hye made the proposal during a state visit to Beijing. The two countries have continued working-level discussions since then and agreed earlier this month to send home the remains of all Chinese soldiers excavated in Korea. Details on when and how the remains will be returned have yet to be decided, but the process is expected to take at least several months. Seoul military officials believe the agreement will provide a boost for Korea-China bilateral relations, which have grown tense in recent weeks over dueling air defense identification zones. And China has reportedly carried out a second test of its new Dongfeng 41 long-range missile. Taiwan's United Daily News reports that the missile test occurred last Friday in the northern Chinese province of Shanxi. The DF-41 intercontinental ballistic missile has a range of up to 12,000 kilometers, enough to deliver multiple warheads to the United States. The U.S. considers it a serious threat to national security. China carried out its first test of the DF-41 in July 2012. Sino-American tensions have been on the rise following the near collision of a U.S. warship and Chinese naval ship earlier this month in the East China Sea.
Well, finally, an issue that lawmakers of all political stripes at the National Assembly can agree upon. They passed a resolution on Thursday that calls on Japan to stop its move towards collective self-defense. Lawmakers say the push threatens peace and stability in the Northeast Asian region. Arirang News National Assembly correspondent Kim Hyun-ji reports.
In an all-member assembly session Thursday, lawmakers approved a resolution demanding Japan stop its push for collective self-defense, which would allow Tokyo to use force in the event an ally is attacked. The resolution says Tokyo's push for collective self-defense runs counter to its constitution that was adopted after World War II, which renounces war as a sovereign right and the use of force as a means of settling international disputes. It urges Japan to move away from efforts to deny or glorify its imperialistic past, and demands that Tokyo accept legal responsibility for the Korean victims of sexual slavery during World War II, and offer them due compensation. The resolution also calls on Japan to stop making false claims to the Korea-controlled Dokdo Islets. In the resolution, Korean lawmakers also demanded that the U.S. work with Japan to dispel Korea's worries, saying that Japan's denial of history and shift from years of pacifism disrupts the post-war international order. Washington has given Tokyo full support for its pursuit of collective self-defense, saying that Japan's endeavor can contribute to peace in Northeast Asia. However, tensions have ratcheted up in the region, following China's declaration of an air defense zone over the East China Sea late last month. On Tuesday, Japan's cabinet approved a new defense package that significantly boosts its military spending over the next 5 years, citing China's growing power in the region as a reason. Kim Hyun-ji, Arirang News.
The South Korean Defense Ministry has announced the interim results of its investigation into allegations that the military intervened in last year's presidential election. It turns out the military did post a massive number of political comments online, but was not aiming to influence the election. Our Han Da-eun explains.
After a 2-month investigation into the military's Cyber Warfare Command, the Defense Ministry announced Thursday that the unit posted some 15,000 political comments online. About 2,000 of the comments named specific political parties or politicians. The military explained, however, that the comments targeted North Korea and others seen as a threat to national security and were part of a larger strategy that was not aimed at influencing last year's presidential election. The head of the ministry's Central Investigation Command, Baek Nak-jong, said the comments were posted under the direction of the Cyber Command Chief, who ordered unit members to post strong comments online, including political claims on significant national security issues. Those include North Korea's sinking of the South Korean warship Cheonan and allegations that late President Roh Moo-hyun conceded the northern limit line during his 2007 summit with then North Korean leader Kim Jong-il. Officials added the unit was not related to the National Intelligence Service in any way. The Cyber Command Chief has been stripped of his post, while 10 members of the unit have been indicted for posting more political comments than others. Immediately following the announcement, Democratic Party members of the Parliament's National Defense Committee released a statement saying the results of the probe are unacceptable and demanded an independent investigation into the case. The party claims that it was a target of the Cyber Command Unit's smear campaign and that it hurt their candidates' chances in last year's election. Pundits say the military has left room for controversy as questions remain about how the political comments they posted differ from an organized smear campaign. 한다은, 아리랑 뉴스.
One year ago on this very day, then presidential candidate Park Geun-hye was elected as the 18th president of Korea. She won more than half of the votes with her key pledges of national integration, economic revitalization, and welfare expansion.
And today we take a look back at what President Park has done since her election day victory. Our presidential office correspondent Oh Jin-ju joins us now from the Arirang News Center to tell us more. So Jin-ju, let's start with the opinion polls.
Yes, Daniel, what does the public think about President Park's performance over the past 10 years since her inauguration in late February? A Gallup Korea survey conducted last week shows that more than half of the people thought that President Park had done a good job, while 35% were less supportive. Now, what made them think this way? People who gave high grades to President Park thought that she did especially well with regard to diplomatic issues. Those who believe the president didn't do as good a job say the president isn't communicating enough with the public or opposition parties and that she hasn't kept her campaign pledges.
So according to that progress report, if you will, Jin-ju, a lot of the Korean people had high marks for President Park on diplomatic and inter-Korean matters, yes?
Yes, that's right. President Park was firm with her principle in dealing with North Korea. Experts say this is why South Korea wasn't swayed by Pyongyang's provocative acts and was successful in keeping tensions from escalating any further than they did.
Principle can make North Korea behave the way we want North Korea behave. And by principled approach, we can, possibly tame North Korea. We don't want to have a game with North Korea when North Korea is not sincere.
President Park was also very active on the diplomatic front. She's held a total of 30 bilateral summits and made 5 overseas trips to the U.S., China, Russia, Southeast Asia, and Europe, winning support for her North Korea policy and pushing ahead with her so-called sales diplomacy. But major tasks do remain. Many analysts say although President Park was able to bolster bilateral relations with China, she has more work to do in strengthening the country's relationship with the U.S. Professor Kim Hyun-wook of Korea National Diplomatic Academy says Korea-U.S. ties are receding.
We have a lot of homework to do about our relationship with the United States. We have to develop our comprehensive strategic alliance. We have to think about what to do about that alliance. We announced that alliance in 2009, and after that, there has been nothing to undergird the alliance, to fill up the contents of the alliance. So I think.
Well, unfortunately, there will always be critics, and some people aren't happy with the way President Park has dealt with the partisan divide that's widened here at home in recent months.
Yes, Daniel, poor grades were given for her handling of domestic issues. In particular, pundits point out that she lacked the skills and effort to communicate with the public and the opposition party, especially with the ongoing political impasse at the National Assembly.
Her grade is disappointing, especially because she started out with very high hopes. We look around in labor stripes, and the politicians are bickering each other as hard as ever. So those kind of things, people point to the president who's in charge. So in that sense, I think the expectation management is one of the key issues. But then her communication style has not helped either.
But the president did receive praise for her reform measures that aim to, quote, normalize the abnormal. They seek to root out corruption and wrong practices in the government and society.
Well, Jinju, another thing to accentuate here is President Park's dedication to the economy and improving the people's livelihoods. Now, what is the perception of how she has done in those areas?
Well, Kanyang, President Park's key goals were economic revitalization and job creation, with her push for a creative economy highlighted the most throughout the year. Economic indicators in Korea have actually been showing signs of recovery, but people say their lives haven't improved all that much.
The government submitted more than 100 bills to National Assembly, but still among more than 100 bills, only a couple of bills only have been approved, passed in the National Assembly. Therefore, I think the government now, from now on, in particular for the new year, must try much more for the passage of the bill already submitted to the National Assembly.
There is also criticism that she has fallen short on her campaign pledge for welfare expansion. The biggest example is the government's scaled-back basic pension program announced in September. However, a senior presidential secretary told Arirang TV that it is too early to say she didn't keep her campaign promises, as the first 10 months have been a period to set up the basic structure and framework of the Park administration.
Well, it's just the beginning. Hopefully, great things to come. Thank you for that report. That was our Oh Jin-ju reporting live from the Arirang News Center on the one-year anniversary of President Park's Election Day victory.
Digging deeper, getting to the bottom of stories that impact your life. Talking with you on air and online. Connecting you with heroes and experts to help you understand the world's most pressing issues. News and current affairs at its best, with Moon Gun-young and Daniel Che on Early Edition at 6.
Now shifting gears to the economy, Korean import prices rose by...
The Korea Railroad Corporation strike is stretching into its 11th day, and the union has launched another major protest rally in Seoul this Thursday.
The rally, the second of its kind, started at about the same time as our newscast, so about 25 minutes ago, and our Kim Young-gil is standing by on site at Seoul Plaza in downtown Seoul. Hello there, Myung-gil. So what is going on there? I hear it's very loud in the background.
Well, hello, Konyo. Yes, it is very noisy out here. And at around 6 p.m., union members of Korea Railway Corporation from all over the nation gathered at Seoul Plaza in front of Seoul City Hall to hold a second mass rally in protest of the government's plan to establish a new rail operator, which they claim is a first step toward privatization. At least 10,000 people are gathered here right now, and the union leaders are making their speeches and chanting slogans, as you can hear right behind me. The government says the strike is illegal, and the state-owned rail operator is insisting that all striking workers return to their posts. More than 950 have crossed the picket line and gone back to work so far. On Thursday, the police issued 25 arrest warrants for core rail union members who are currently on strike, and one union leader has been arrested. Police have also raided 4 local union offices.
Well, that is most unfortunate for those involved in the strike. Well, the strike is now into its 11th day, Myung-gil, and we've seen disruptions to freight and passenger trains. At what level were they running today?
Well, yes, that is true, Daniel. The strike has crippled railway services nationwide, hitting cargo train services the hardest. Freight rail operations are running at 39% of normal levels, and long-distance core rail services were down to 56% and 61% respectively.
All right, that was Chi Myung-gil reporting live from Seoul Plaza, where a mass rally is being held by union workers of Korail, and we'll be checking back in with him during our later newscast today.
And that's all the time we have for this edition. Thank you for watching. This has been Daniel Choi.
And I'm Moon Gun-young. Thank you as always for being here with us. Tomorrow's supposed to be the coldest day so far, so please make sure to bundle up on your way to work and enjoy the rest of the evening. We'll see you right back here same time tomorrow. Good night.